Okay, well, while we wait for Thierry, we got enough people here that we can certainly get started. So, a lot of new faces today. I usually just start with a quick introduction because I post these publicly. And I just like to kind of explain what this is to everybody, and then we can kind of dive in. Um, I'm going to mostly stay quiet, especially when there's a bigger group. I'll let you all talk about, your experiences here, and any screen sharing and questions is appreciated, especially when we do have a big group, though. I will say try to use the raise hand function because otherwise people talk over each other. So when we have like only like 4 or 5 people can just talk. When it is a big group, try to not only use the raise hand, but try to also pay attention to when people are raising their hand so you can see when someone may have a question about it. So without further ado, I will start recording and we'll get underway. Okay, recording started. So, welcome everybody. It's been a while since we had one of these. After not having an arena open for Final Fantasy, it's nice to get one back for Edge of Eternities. We've got some old faces, some new faces, but a lot of fantastic streamers. A lot of people playing in the Pro Tour, a lot of people playing in the Open coming up. So, I like to host these mostly selfishly. They're mostly for myself because I like to hear people talk about Limited at a high level. But for anyone listening in, these are not intended as content. So I don't edit these. They're not posted to YouTube. You can basically be a fly on the wall for these conversations and do what you like with it. But they are mostly just for us kind of chat about the format, almost like an old school PT testing meeting. So without further ado, we'll kind of dive in. I don't know, Jason, you were the first. You said you had something exciting to share. I'm going to put the spotlight on you and have you kick things off with us today.
Oh no, this might be a bad idea. So I have a very particular way that I've been drafting this format. I will preface this with I'm not going to try to claim that like the way I've been drafting the format is the best way or the way that you should always be drafting the format. I've been trying specifically to play in a specific space and like refine that specific space. Been doing a lot of like experimentation and stuff. I've been doing well with it, but I'm not saying that like the way I'm drafting is necessarily the best. I'm just presenting my findings. And so, without further ado, I may have gone a little bit overboard and made a presentation. Um, so, specifically, what I've been drafting a lot in this format is soup. Like a lot of decks that I personally call soup. This usually is multicolor. That's where I think. Thank you, Sam. That's where most people go when they hear the word soup. But like to me, it's like not necessarily about specifically splashing, and I'll get to that a little bit as I go through. But yeah, to me, the thing that's important about soup is that it is a like somewhat controlling deck, though obviously, all limited decks should be able to play at multiple points in the game, but like a somewhat controlling deck that utilizes a lot of like card draw to have inevitability and make sure you don't run out of things to do. And also, often you want to be employing methods of like mana fixing and mana development in ways that like help smooth out your draws. You're basically trying to avoid like stumbling on mana, either like mana screw or mana flood, and that's like the ethos of soup to me. So to me, the things that are like important to any soup deck, you want some amount of card draw, want some amount of like mana smoothing in some way. Often this leads into like playing a bunch of mana fixing through like landers and such, but like ways to develop your mana. You want a bunch of removal in order to deal, because you want games to go long. You want to be able to answer your opponent's stuff. You want a lot of defensive speed so you don't die early, and you want impactful cards, whatever those may be. Right? This could be like bombs. This could be more expensive things. There is actually a lot of card draw in the set. There's card draw of all forms, whether it be like Sunstar, Lightsmith, and other card draw engines like that. There's like a bunch of divinations like Cryogen Relic, which sometimes feels like more than a divination. And there's like also draw threes. The favorite of my which is Survey Mechan, definitely, perhaps unsurprisingly. Uh, favorite in terms of how much I enjoy it, not necessarily favorite in terms of how strong I think it is. But yeah, so there's like a bunch of ways to draw cards, and this is like very important to like what I think of as a soup deck. You want to be able to like continually use your mana, and there aren't actually that many like mana sinks in the format where you can like spend your mana repeatedly on like an activated ability that doesn't draw cards. Like there's the green 2-drop that puts a +1/+1 counter on itself repeatedly, but like that's not all that exciting of a mana sink even. Beyond then we have a lot of mana fixing, but most of it is in green. I've really liked like a lot of my soup decks are obviously going to be based in green because of these 3 commons. I know like Pollinator and Wayfarer have very good stats. Curiosity not so much, and I suspect that a lot of people don't like the card Sammy's Curiosity, but I really do because I'm basically treating it as if I'm playing like an Evolving Wilds kind of like I'm just playing like an extra land or like extra lands in a lot of my decks, and like a lot of my decks have enough card draw that extra mana is actually useful. Plus all of like landfall stuff makes lands better as well, things like that. But so yeah, so obviously landers mostly in green, you're often going to be in green for that, but also there are ways to fix with colorless, like a colorless ways to fix. Command Bridge and Scrapbot probably some of the more obvious ones that like most decks can make use of, but there's also ways to sprinkle in all the colors as well, so you don't have to be green. But often I will be green, and I often will be green while only really playing the green to play lander cards, which is a little unintuitive, but like I think that the landers are powerful enough that you can play green just for the fixing, because it like not only fixes you, but also develops your mana in a way that is actually beneficial, and it's not just like splashing for fixing, like it becomes like a core part of your plan. Like it's easier to play green 4 colors than like 3 colors without the green sometimes, quite often even. But yeah, on top of that, there's like a bunch of there's a couple cards that like both fix you and draw cards, and these are some of like my the cards I'm drafting the most highly in the set. All Fate Scroll and Biomech Engineer. Biomech and it should be self-obvious that card's very, very strong. But All Fate Scroll I've also been finding has been very good, especially with a lot of cheap 1 mana ways to like interact and like like removal and other defensive speed. There's a lot of like 1 mana things that you can do. But yeah, then defensive speed wise, there's a lot of like random creatures that like trade off well or are cheap and big. Here's an example of some of them. You can also just play normal 2-drops that trade off. There's not too much. There's not like anything that's that interesting here. Just like make sure that you have a curve that makes sense. And there's a lot of good removal in this set, like enough so that I don't think you really need to prioritize it highly, but I do especially like prioritizing the like really cheap ones like Cryo Shatter, Focus Fire, and if I have the fodder, Embrace Oblivion. Like those 3, to some extent the red one too, Plasma Bolt, but that one I think falls off a little in sizing. But there's a lot of 1 mana ways to interact, and that like really helps after you've been spending mana to develop your mana with like landers and such. And then in terms of impactful cards, obviously this can come in the form of like efficient bombs like Servandum here, or like really strong uncommons like Social Engineering. But there's also like just some pretty decent like expensive like 2-for-1 commons, like Pinnacle Killship, for example, is something that you can get very easily, and like it's not that good of top end, but like it does kind of do the job in these kinds of decks. Like after you've developed your mana, you just like kill something, have a 7/7, your opponent has to deal with it somehow, you got a 2-for-1. That's often good enough. Nebula Dragon is another one that goes pretty late that I've been liking. You probably don't want too many of these, but like their existence means that you don't need to like prioritize like good top end particularly highly. Like I think I'm weirdly low on the card, the Glacier Godmaw card, like the green like Vigilance Haste Landfall thing for 7 mana, because like obviously that's a very strong card when you resolve it, but often like the decks I'm playing don't like need help in the 7 mana slot. But yeah, so those are like the category of things that I've been like thinking a lot about in building these decks, and I just have some examples. this deck was probably one of the strongest decks I felt I drafted. It just has a lot of cheap removal. You see like two Cryo Shatters, a Focus Fire, and a Brace Oblivion to go along with like nutrient blocks and landers and such. And then I have an All Fate Scroll and 2 Survey Mechans that often had like 6+ lands to see, and just a bunch of like ways to develop my mana and a bunch of good removal. The Space Time Anomaly, I was trying it. It was bad, but yeah, just very, very strong deck. Like everything is just playing towards what the deck wants. Here was another deck that was on the lower end of like how powerful I imagined these decks being, but with a lot of like less ideal pieces, like relying on these like kill ships for somewhat for top end was not the best. The like fixing wasn't amazing here. There's not quite enough card draw, but like it still like was able to come together just enough to get a 3-0. All of this is best of 3, by the way. I've only been playing in best of 3. The card under Reflecting Pool. This was Reflecting Pool and Crystal Quarry, which was a very amusing way to make a 5-color land with Reflecting Pool. I don't know if it was correct to play, but it did end up working well. This was a deck that I had that had basically like no green fixing. Like the only green card here that fixes me is Edge Rover, and obviously that's not really a thing that like can work consistently. But like between the All Fate Scroll, the 2 command bridges, I was able to play like a 3-color deck and get enough of the pieces that I wanted, though. Still not perfect. Usual Soul Engineering carried a lot of it, and it was good enough to 3-0 still. And here was a deck I had that was playing like less ambitious, playing fewer colors, but I still like categorized this as a very like soup build. This was a deck where I like took 2 Sunstar Lightsmiths early and leaned on those as my card draw, and like ended up like looking like I was going into black white, but then like picking up some green cards because I felt that they just paired better with the card draw that Lightsmith provided. Like instead of playing just like some okay mid-rangey black cards, I thought that the green cards that developed my mana, like Sammy's Curiosity and Gene Pollinator, were just going to be better, and that ended up working out pretty well. But yeah, that's what I have. Those are my examples. I've been drafting basically only this. I've been doing decently well, like all 3-0s and 2-1s in best of 3. But yeah, I've had a couple 2-color decks, but not very many. I don't know if other people have like questions.
To be clear for the new people here, these slideshows are not the norm or mandatory or the bar that we need to meet. So don't worry about anything like that.
Yeah, I just thought that I had something particularly coherent to say this time, so I thought I would like organize my thoughts a little bit before the meeting.
I think this is helpful. I was surprised to hear you say that the mill card wasn't strong in that one deck that you had it in, because it looked like the perfect deck for it. It looked like a lot of life gain, a lot of cheap removal, and then you could dig towards it. So I'm surprised it didn't perform in that deck. Did you like not draw it, or?
Well, okay. I will clarify. I drew it exactly once, and it was completely dead. The reason I thought it was like not good in this deck was that this deck was so strong that if it's ever in a position where like Space Time Anomaly would be good, like I can spend 4 mana to not affect the board, and then hope that the game goes long, like a couple more. Hope the game goes like a couple more turns. It should already be winning. Like it wasn't covering any of the weaknesses of the deck. It wasn't like contributing anything really. The deck didn't really need it to win, so it wasn't that. This deck was too good to want Space Time Anomaly. I could see it being good in a different deck, but yeah.
All right.
Well, it would contribute to beating other decks like yours, right?
Oh yeah. I didn't run into any mirrors with this deck for Space Time Anomaly, but yeah, I suspect it's a good side card.
What I mean, like, it's interesting because what you described as the soup deck, I think, describes a lot of the format as a whole. Like, I think a lot of decks I faced and played fall within that space. they don't necessarily play that many colors. Like I think what we have on screen is an example of a deck that is many more colors than the usual build in the format, and it has survey mechans and all fate scroll to justify it. But my overall view of the format is that it's very grindy, and all decks or almost all decks should have a plan for grinding out games and winning in the late game. And so I think Space-Time Anomaly is good because like the typical deck you're going to face is going to aim at that as well. And so it's just a way to say, like, if you want to go to the late game, you're going to lose. So now you have to try something different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess like a lot of the decks in the format are grindy, but I think that specifically what I like prioritize with Soup is grindiness in the form of like literally seeing extra cards. And like that's why like card draw was the like first thing that I talked about. Like I value all of everything that draw is more than a definition, like really, really highly. And I think that those are very important because there's just a lot of ways to like trade in the format. And often like I think if you just like are able to see more cards, and then you can like just overpower your opponent with card advantage, and that trumps most things in the format. And then to go along with card draw, then like mana development becomes very good because developing your mana to be able to use all the cards that you're drawing is naturally like strategies that pair together pretty well. And then like if you're already developing your mana a lot, then like you have room to like you have a lot of room to splash because a lot of the ways to develop your mana are with landers, which can find like any source, right? Like this deck has like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5, are arguably 6-ish 5-color sources if you count like the landers and such. Sam? Sam, you were raising your hand. Did you?
Sam, if you're speaking, you're muted or something, or your volume's not working. Maybe needs to leave and rejoin, or is a mic issue? But okay, we can maybe come back to Sam.
Yeah, I think these 5-color decks have been, or multicolor decks have also been strong. I do think though it may be a little dangerous to like, I don't know. To me, it seems like after the first week, like the good quality lander cards are like drying up. You don't see them as late anymore. They're pretty contested. I think people are pretty wise to them. So I think this is always a great like plan A, but if you have to adjust, I have found like streamlined 2-color decks to be pretty strong, and I think Boros specifically is kind of underrated because you can build it as kind of like it's like a grindy deck that you can like keep on pressuring your opponents. So it has value in a lot of the cards that you can play in it. But your opponent just doesn't get to like sit back and kind of play the, well, I'm going to outvalue game. It's good at like pressuring them. So they have to answer your threats, but you still kind of simultaneously get to add some value while you're threatening them. Obviously the signpost uncommon 2/4 Sammy has been great. With any of the rare or uncommon spacecrafts I've been you can throw in there in the colors, and gives you ways to tap things. And I think if you just build a good curve with Boros, you have a couple of those payoffs, and you pick up like key pieces of removal and keep your curve low. I think it goes a long way, but it's good to have those like kind of like plan B options if you see you're just not seeing a lot of strong cards, or you happen to notice some of the like streamlined 2-color decks signposts are coming along. At least that's what I've been keeping an eye on, and it's kind of paid off.
Do you want to take us through next? Like, do you have a few examples of Boros? Because Boros is statistically by far the least drafted pair among top players on 17 lands. So not a lot of people are drafting it. So if you do have some good examples, that was actually one of the areas I wanted to make sure we covered today.
Yeah, let me share I brought one up, and again, it's not like a deep sample set, because I do think it's like kind of hard to come together. It's not open, but it's good to keep an eye out if it is kind of meant for your seat. There we go. Yeah. Is this good? Okay. Yeah, so this, I mean, obviously getting 3 Sammys is not going to be common. And this also has Gunship, which I think is just like a great rare, full stop. And like the curve is a little higher than I would like in this deck, but this performed pretty well in like, I think Mythic or maybe High Diamond, best of 1. And, it has like defensive speed if you happen to be against like an aggro deck and a couple of focus fires. But I think once you start like getting to around basically by turn 4, you have like 1 or 2 things on the battlefield, most likely, and you can kind of start turning them sideways in a few different ways, be it just attacking, with the menace land seekers, or tapping them down with ships if you want to just kind of stall a few turns. I thought this deck performed really well. It felt really good to play. Command Bridge was kind of like, oh, it's another way to tap something if I need to, less of a like, oh, I need this extra land. It could be a little dicey if you're trying to be the aggro to include this land, but it actually doesn't feel too bad if you're trying to play like the defensive role. So I don't know if like the bridge helped more than it hurt at the end of the day. If you ran this deck like a tons of games, it would be a problem or not. But yeah, the rare station land looks insane there. Yeah, the rare station land would be good too.
Yeah, both the red and the white one have been really, really good in aggressive decks for me. Would you play Starport Security if it wasn't for the Shepherd here?
I don't know the card names too well.
The one drop
okay.
that you can fetch with the 5 drop.
I don't think so. Honestly, I just want another 1-drop with that because this deck doesn't really need like that many lands past like land 5, and I think I want to get some value for the Star Shepherd if I were to draw it. Also, just getting on board early is nice because it's another creature I could tap without having to attack with, which is kind of nice here, and I can kind of slow the game down with it. I don't recall how that card specifically played, to be honest. But yeah, without the Shepherd, I doubt it, unless I just had no other cards in the sideboard. I can't remember.
Well, do you want to scroll down?
I could scroll down, I guess, huh? Oh,
keeping it a secret.
Yeah. So it was like high. Yeah, it was mostly like high curve cards was another thing. I think I just wanted to kind of push the curve a little bit, considering. And I didn't want the Mechans because you can like warp them in for 3 damage, but then they don't stay on the battlefield and you have to spend 4 mana. Not a big fan of that card. Auxiliary Boosters has been good, I think, otherwise in other types of decks. But again, I thought my curve was a little high to begin with, so I didn't want to add a 5-drop in here. But yeah, anyway, I thought, I don't see a lot of talk about Boros. I don't run into it too often, so I thought this was like more interesting to share. Just because, I think it's a small sample size of seeing like what a Boros deck can do. But again, maybe I just ran a little hot and this actually can't really compete without like good draws or something. Hard to say.
Well, while you have the floor, I don't see any hands up or anything, so I'll let you. Did you have anything else? Like, what's been your number 1, either favorite or most drafted deck? And if you have an example or 2.
Yeah, I went back and looked at like, all the decks I played. I don't really have any favorites. For some reason, I absolutely hate Orzhov. I know I get beat with it all the time, and I know other people like it. I've tried building it like 5 different ways, and I can never win with it. So that's like the one deck I'm like soft avoiding at the moment. But I truly think most of the colors are pretty balanced, except that they didn't give Golgari like an identity, which seems like a purposeful choice in design. They were just kind of like, we won't worry about that. So like it's hard to get into like straight Golgari, I find, but I think, I don't mind starting with really any. It's kind of like a standard drafting approach for me is like, okay, I'm going to take the strongest card. I'm not really like against playing any of the colors necessarily. Like Jason said, removal is pretty abundant, so I it's kind of knocked down a tier in terms of like having to prioritize it unless it's like one of the super premium removal cards. And then I just go from there. It like some of the 2-color signposts are really clear signals in this set as opposed to other sets. There's not that many multicolor cards, and if you see one kind of late, it's more of a signal, I think, than just like, oh yeah, there was like 12 different multicolor cards in this pack, so I'm not gonna worry about that. And yeah, I think I have a pretty balanced like pretty balanced like rate of playing the different colors and different archetypes. And I think I've had, you know, above average success in the collective, but for any one color pair or anything, I've been able to, you know, do reasonably well with most color pairs just because I think it's balanced. And I think once you find an open lane, it's pretty easy to kind of like pick the strong cards in those two colors separately and then kind of fill the gaps with anything you need, either from some of the like utility artifacts or like I said, getting removals not hard. So it's not hard to kind of plug that gap if you're prioritizing like the better creatures and whatnot in the colors. Not the most exciting take, but I think it's actually pretty well designed format, and you know, I've been finding it kind of balanced, so I like that.
Yeah, that's fair. Does anyone else want to take before? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can add on Boros. By the way, do you hear me, guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, okay.
And congrats, by the
Let
way.
me figure out how
Yeah.
to share. No, wait. Okay, here. I got it. So my Boros has been like the curve has been a little bit higher than usual, and I'm often playing like 18 lands or something. But it kind of feels like you can just jam random cards and Boros is gonna do well. I don't like. I honestly like. The only thing I'm really careful about is that I take above average 2 drops, and because white is so open, you always get some of these 2/3s, and Mechan is really good. And then I mean, this is maybe a better example because you just kind of want to do this Mechan into Land Seeker, and you're just gonna win games. And then these tricks have all both been great. But this has like obviously insane rares, so I don't know. Hard to say. That's because I haven't drafted that much, but I've been really. I don't have also a perspective like I never look at the stats really that much. But I thought like Boros was good, but now that you're saying that's not, I'm a little bit surprised. But these are the two Boros examples. This trophy on mobile, but was pretty much like even Ragers were good. I think something to note is that you really need enough stuff to tap your things down. Like even something like Crusher, I know it's not the greatest card, but it's fine. And the land is insane. That's about it. Yeah, like the tricks are just good. Yeah. That's what I have on Boros.
Yeah, I think Mechan is like such a strong 2-drop. It's such a good like early pick because it can go in these Boros decks, it can go into like the ramp decks. It's an artifact. It's one of the premium 2-drops in my opinion. And I think red is super strong overall.
And white, for whatever reason, seemed to be always open, and I found it to be pretty good. Like it has good removal at common, banishing light, and insane uncommons. Like especially 2 drops in white are really, really good and uncommon. And they always go late.
Is there another deck that you've been drafting more than this?
Celestia has been doing better, but I think just because it pressures more. Like I think Celestia goes way more aggro than Boros, and I really like. I mean, this had a lot of rares, but just curve out. Like nothing. Like it's funny. This is my take on this format. I like the soups as well, but I haven't drafted them that much because I don't find them that interesting to play. Um, Even though I know they're good. But it kind of feels like you just need to worry about the curve a little bit and you get there. Mostly because also a lot of people, a lot of stuff is, a lot of what other people are doing or what is perceived to be good is these relic strategies and like bunch of like do nothings on turn 2 and 3. And then if you curve out, I think you just get on tempo edge. You just need to make sure you're able to complement that with tricks or removal. So this is pretty much I don't know, there's nothing special. I like booster way more in Celestia than in Boros because in Boros you can get over the top with Samis or the tap stuff. While I think Celestia just wants to like be more of a curve out deck. A card I would value really high only in Celestia is Might. Might is so good when you can put counters on it. just curving from one. Well, I would never play it in any other deck, I think. But yeah, like, I mean, for obvious reasons, it's good in Celestia. And then also, I would go high in Celestia, even if I'm only in 2 colors on the Hex Prover, the 1/3 flyer. You can just put counters on it, especially if you have like cards like the Enchancer is good, and they have like one of the decks here, like this one as well. If you have the 1/3, even though in this deck I didn't have it. Um, and then yeah, obviously all the counter stuff. That card I've not been impressed with at all. It just it you need to put a counter on itself, like, and then it's maybe because otherwise they just deal with that and you don't draw a card.
There's a few
Mm.
questions in the comments section because we got a big group. The first one was
Okay,
asking
okay.
why
I'm not.
you're
I can't. I
playing.
don't have double screen here, so I'm
Yeah, it's
only.
okay. I'm just bringing it up. So the first one was actually about Dust Bowl in red white.
Dust. Which one is that?
It was the first one you shared had a Dust Bowl in the land slot, the red white deck.
Oh, the red white. I don't
That
know.
one, yeah.
I just added in because I thought it would be because I wanted the 18 light. I could play the. Would be probably better to play the red one.
Okay.
Just. But sometimes it does matter because like these lands are really good, and some like if you face them, and maybe sometimes you get a shock land in because a lot of people are going 3-colored.
I guess it's just like if you're saying you got to start on a good 2-drop, so important. Like just playing an extra source is probably worth more than the extra land. But
Yeah, it should have probably been in a mountain.
and then the other question was about the Seriema, the white thing that tutors up a legend. Whether you like it without any targets.
Yeah,
Did you have
I look for
targets?
all of these.
You
Like even
you had
this.
one, right? You have the Halia.
Yeah, I know which one. I mean this one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
did you have a target in this deck? I don't.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, when you have a 3-mana 5/5 flyer, I know you have to tap stuff down, but you kind of get a tempo back because that's like overstated for 3-mana, right? So even if like 7 is not much to station, you kind of get a tempo sort of back, I think. So it played out pretty well, like just as a flyer. And the other one has been insane. Like this one has been really good, but for obvious reasons, if you have ever a creature, it just like you tap something down, but you add something to the board and you get a flyer, right? That's like also comes into equation with the tempo that you get a flyer for relatively cheap. Like that's like 3 mana for a 4/5 is pretty good, or the 5/5 in the other case. But yeah, you tap something down. There's a cost to it, obviously. But I like both.
Well, a lot of your top end in that deck isn't actually creatures, right? Like 3 of those 5-drops you can't put in.
That is true. That is true. But again, there's certain like this deck also wants just a lot of stuff to tap. Like it just wants a station, a spacecraft. Like it has the agrarian and the vanguard. And I had this combo as well. C chip into that, and you just win the game on turn 4 because you just crew it and do your stuff. But yeah, it doesn't put these, which is a little bit awkward. But Greenhouse has been really good in Celestia in general. But honestly, nothing special. I have one Ragdos deck, which was actually really good. Like that was maybe my favorite deck that I drafted. So it had the manufacturing. Then it had a bunch of these cheap artifacts. I even played the torpedo. I had some good stations, but it triggered that. Then I had this guy and just combos with a Zealot. I played 2 of these, even though I don't like that card that much. But when you have manufacturing, you just need stuff to sack. Um, and this card is surprisingly good, actually. Just for the same reason, I think Jason was talking about that you just need card advantage in decks like that where you don't go aggro. I mean, this looks a cheap deck, but it won't really curve out that well because the stats on the 2s and 3 drops are not really great for attacking. So you basically just do your sack things and that's it.
Anyone else want to hop in next? Want to make sure we have time for everybody.
Yeah, I could go.
Sure, go ahead.
Let me. Let me know if you see it.
Yep.
17. All right. So for starters, I've been doing pretty bad for me. Like 60% is not where I'm normally at. I'll start with, I thought some of these are going to be decks that didn't work because I haven't had that much that did. I did have a soup deck. I don't know if it's very similar to the one Jason had or not. Tried not to pick ones with just all rares, but like I had the 2 scrolls, the Mechan. I even played a planes with no white cards. And the curve, I had 18 lands. I found that especially when my landers are coming from like 4 mana cards and such, that I really want to hit a lot of lands, and I kind of don't run out of things to do. Like these are, the curve isn't even that bad in this deck is what I'm trying to get at, I guess. But just a ton of mana sources. I've had similar decks that have kind of failed, but this one, I think with enough card draw, it was able to do really well. It's got the good early game stuff, of course. Just kind of kill them with whatever. But I was kind of doing decks like this a lot. And like I say, some would do well, some wouldn't. I don't know exactly why. I just kind of wanted to try some other stuff. So I kind of stopped drafting them. It's not like I was winning every time with them, but some of them worked out real well. I didn't know if this would be something that other people had really tried with this, but I do think if you can get this stuff, that it's worth playing a bunch of colors. So that's one thing I had that did work. So then this deck was just awful. It played out awful. I thought it looked okay, but it just doesn't really do anything. It's looking pretty bad now that I'm looking back on it. I was just looking for anything I could share with you guys. But I think these kind of trinkety blue-black decks need more power at the top. Like these things were awful in this deck. I wasn't aggressive. They weren't doing anything for me. And the deck played, it just felt really bad. This one is kind of maybe similar to the one that was just shown. And I thought this deck looked good. I went 2 and 3. It just ran out. It had nothing at the top either. Like I had these guys. It just, I don't know. I thought it looked okay. And then, yeah, before, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just add? I think I had similar problems. I was drafting a lot of decks like that with all of these kind of curve out plans, cheap decks, but then they failed at just like curving out a little bit. Like this Intimidator is way better when you go bigger, I think, than if you go like it's not great in aggro decks because they just give you landers and then it's whatever. So I find like all this aggro stuff like only works in Celestia where you just kind of play just big bodies like on 2 and 3 and then back it up. I know this is not supposed to be that aggro, but the thing is everything else is so grindy that it's hard to derple around like that. If that makes sense.
I maybe even decked myself one game with this deck. Like it just it did not do enough. JD, if you got something to say.
Yeah, to go back to whether decks are aggro or not, I think like I'm gonna say something that may be a hot take, but I think aggro doesn't really exist in this format. Like I've like, obviously it's an overgeneralization, and there will be aggressive decks, but I think the most creatures don't lend themselves well to attacking. Either they have big stats and they trade down with stuff that has ETBs, or they have slower stats and ETBs and are not made for attacking. Like obviously you can attack with them and you can put pressure, but I haven't either played or faced actual aggressive decks that are able to just win via speed. And admittedly, I didn't play best of 1. I only played best of 3, so that might be part of it. Like maybe in best of 1, it's more like it exists a little more. But I think decks in this format have to like on the one hand, I think aggro doesn't really exist, and on the other hand, I think there's a very high bar for winning the late game. Like all decks have tools to grind pretty late, so I think if you want to be able to outgrind people, you have to go pretty far to guarantee it. And if you don't have these tools at all and want to be aggressive, there are certain color pairs where you can put pressure, like green-white is the main one, in my opinion. But you also have to make a strong choice in that direction then, and like not only have a good curve, but also like not try to fiddle too much with like with value stuff if you're not ready to actually go there.
Yeah, I really wasn't. I didn't even see this as an aggro deck at all. Like I've got blocks, beetles. I thought I was more of like a grindy deck, but the problem is I just was grinding into more air. With nothing up top, I just couldn't. I wouldn't finish the game. Jason?
Yeah, I just wanted to concur with JD about like there it not really feeling like there's aggro decks in the format. I've definitely seen like aggro draws from some decks, and like this is like just decks curving out in such a way that if you just go like nothing on turn 2, nothing on turn 3, you will die. Like I've been curved out by someone just playing like random dinky blue-white 2-drops before. Or like another thing I've seen is the rare 4/1 menace in black for 2. That card has killed me, and I've killed other people with it very quickly. But like, there don't seem to be really decks that are like super focused on like every single card in my deck is like dedicated to doing damage and like winning the short game. Like people aren't playing like falters and tricks and such. And like maybe there's some deck out there that can do that, but I suspect it would be like a rarity.
Okay. My next set of decks are all blue white, and one of them was really good, and then there's 2 that were failures. I'll start with the good one. I think I put it. No, that's the failure. Okay, this was the really good one. This deck definitely felt like an aggro deck. I did get 3 of these Titans. Some of them were coming around really late. I mean, and I had 2 of the signposts. What I think I learned from this is that if you're gonna try it, like maybe start off with the good blue cards, and if you see the monitor, or just dive in for the monitor, it's what's the word? Volatile, I guess. Like you're either gonna really get there or you're not. The modulations were great in this deck, and just even this guy was really good. He hit hard, just lots of 4/4s, and I ran people over. So of course I tried to recreate it, and it didn't always work. And the next 2 fell real flat. And this even has a monitor, but it's way too many of these Gale blades. I just ended up sacking them, drawing into nothing, and then I'm trying to it's got a top end. I did have decks where this was decent, like 5-win, 6-win decks, but it wasn't here. It was more of my top end when I played these guys. Now that it's somewhere in the middle, like this turned into like a draw 3 Gale blade deck. It just did not work out. And then this as well. Like they kind of look similar. This had 3 of these operatives, which have been good for me, but this went 0-3. I mean, you've got kind of the problem where the deck has to draw its cards in the right order, and it needs to have the right cards in the deck to draw in that order. Like if you don't have some of those, the Titans and the monitors and stuff, if you get these cards, I do think there's something here. And I do think it's mostly a blue deck that plays some white cards to support it. But this is maybe the closest thing I've found to. And then I've had a lot that have been in between too. Not all of them just flopped or were really good, but this is maybe the only thing I've found that's a little bit different. It's kind of all I got. Yeah.
Can somebody, anybody have like a good blue-black deck? I'm curious.
I don't think I did.
Because I have also one that I thought it was really good, but it didn't really play out at all. Like it feels like I always mill out to it. Blue-black.
Okay, 3. Yeah, this was a really good one, but I don't think it's too helpful. I thought I'd win with damage some games because I had like this guy, and no, there was no winning with damage.
Oh yeah, I was gonna pull up a deck, but it also had two
I
of the
mean-
ruptures.
That's all I got. Ah, wrong button.
I have one. I have one blue-black. I want to share maybe, which didn't do well, but it looked insane to me. But then it just kind of always milled out, or something weird happened. Because I don't know if I can pair blue with anything else but green. And I kind of wanted just more of the companions. Like there were so many games where, I mean, two of these were kind of a liability more often than not because they milled 3 cards. And then the end stone here. And nothing that really finishes the game, I think, that well. And I haven't really seen great blue blacks other than the ones with mass removal and stuff.
Yeah, Jason.
I think I think I'm pretty low on black in this format in general. Like, you have some okay removal spells with like depressurize and grab kill, but like I don't even think those are like among the strongest removal spells in the set. Like, they're good, but not like the strongest. And like I feel like a lot of the black cards just like aren't that impactful. Like, they're all doing a little bit small ball things, so you kind of like have a weakness where you like need your other the other cards in your deck to like make up for that. So like it can be pretty rough to pair with blue as well, especially because like blue brings like card draw, better removal with cryo shatter, but like also not that many like super impactful things, right? Like obviously there's the like 2 mana 4/4.
I think I probably played this card to get like the companion back, I think, now that I look at it.
Yeah, overall, I've just found black to be like a little
Yeah.
lacking in that department, and that's why I haven't really liked blue black.
Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say one common theme with all my blue black decks that did well is it had at least one sweeper. It almost seems like a necessary piece. You get access to them in that color pair, but without them, it's very hard to do the like. You can't pressure them that much. If you just remove all of their stuff, and then you dump your creatures, like they also have ways to get value, and their creatures are just gonna be bigger on average, like Jason was just saying, and like. But if you start with the sweeper, I think you can build around them, and it's a good color pair to like utilize the sweeper at least. But obviously, we're talking about rares. So
Thierry, did you want to share? I said you saw you said you have a few examples. You want to pop those up next?
Yep. See, how do I do it? Oops. How does it work?
So the little screen with
Okay.
the arrow button,
Like
and then
this.
share entire screen. Yeah, okay.
Okay, this one was the latest I draft, but it's not normal. That's free brass and some cultural. So you have rupture that it's important, I think, in some blue black because it gives you a way to exhaust your opponents on active card actually. But most of the blue black I drafted were kind of like this, like a bunch of relic or nutriment block, Embrace Oblivion, and self-craft mechan with like 1 or 2 flyers, and that was it. Like it's kind of enough to pressure the opponent, I think. but you need some ways to exhaust your opponents. Like I think blue-black is basically it. Like you draw too many cards from the deck, so you need to at the same time make many values out to your opponent with Virus Below, Relic, or some other stuff. This was the two last I drafted on Arena. Well, two Rupture as well. But I think like when I open Rupture, I'm actually going very deep in blue-black. Like mono-black splash blue is fine as well, or like red-black splash blue for this. I value really high this card. I don't know for you guys, but I got it past like pick 6 or 7 some drafts, so maybe I'm over-evaluating this. But it's been great for me. Yeah.
Yeah, Rupture has really good top player stats, but it's not a lot of cards in this set feel like they're not picked as high as they should be on Arena, which is pretty normal for Premier Draft.
Like we see it with Space Invasion. Milling is something in this set. So I don't feel like this card should be passed on the first booster. And the other deck I have, like it's blue deck basically. I draft a lot of blue deck and black deck. But I tend to draft a lot in the Grixis shell because green isn't open that much, I think. And white is surprisingly not that deep for me. So I prefer drafting like in this kind of color because it's way more often open than the others. That's it. You have some question?
Yeah, you have to go
ahead. It wasn't really a question, so if other people have questions to ask Thierry, maybe they can take precedence. I wanted to link this to other kinds of control decks that are not blue-black, but like I think it's an interesting alternative. So I've been drafting white-black a lot, and I think it's Dufour that said earlier that he, or maybe, I don't remember who it was, sorry, but who said they were interested in white-black. Yeah, okay, it was Christopher. And so it's my most drafted color pair, and it's been following an interesting recipe where I basically play hard control and take the draw. So let me find it. I have too many windows opened. But basically, like the idea is, if you don't play blue, it's harder to generate card advantage, and so you need to generate card advantage in some way. You have a lot of removal spells in the set, so getting the tempo back is not that hard. And you also have Virus Beetle, which is, I think, a key card of the archetype, and which is much better on the draw too. I'm about to find it, sorry about the delay. Yeah, so this one, for example, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah, so like it's one example, but I've had like 3 or 4 decks that looked pretty much like this. Usually it starts with a sweeper, but since there are many sweepers in the format, it's not going to be that uncommon, I feel like. And so there's the sweeper, there's a Virus Beetle, there's also Sunstar Expansionist as a card that works better on the draw and helps you both block and generate value. And then you want enough removal to like not be overwhelmed. This deck has a decent amount. It can be more. Like I think some of these creatures could have been removal, and the deck would have been better for it. But basically, what you're doing is just exhausting them, similar to what Thierry said. And I think white has an advantage over blue in that it's way better at putting board presence. and so like it's easy to get to a board stall situation where you have the extra card for being on the draw, and you also have enough removal and sweepers to target the things that matter. And in the end, the sort of like small grindy card advantage from black ends up taking over once you remove the few bombs they might have. So like it's I've been drafting like I said 3 or 4 decks exactly like in this area. Sometimes there's a splash, like sometimes there's like one mountain for Nebula Dragon or one island for the blue-black sweeper, for example. But they all look similar, and they all 3-0'd in a pretty convincing way. Whereas the first black-white deck I drafted was an aggressive one, like trying to be aggressive, and it didn't work at all. So that's what I've fallen back on as a way to draft white-black.
Before?
Wait, what did I wanna? Because I raised my hand early. Oh yeah, on best of one and best versus best of three. Because I found in arena, your perception gets really skewed by actually not playing ranked in best of three, because you face like decks with really kind of poor builds more often than not, so you get away with more. I would just be careful
yeah.
to give opponent a draw in a normal setting, like or give myself on the draw. That's what I wanted to say. Like it's because this doesn't look to me like it runs out of gas that quick. What you're saying here, like it looks pretty.
That's fair. Like obviously, like I'm in a mindset where I'm not interested in best of one at all. So what I say maybe doesn't apply to best of one. I've been playing all best of three because I'm preparing for
I get what you're saying,
event.
but I'm saying also it's better. Like for me at least, it has worked better practicing for arena open and best of one, because you actually play your own rank. I don't think like best of three versus best of one really matters that much in terms of deck building and like game progression and stuff like that, besides sideboarding. But because it's not ranked, you face lesser competition, so your perception, you get away with more. That's what I'm saying.
I think that's the whole other conversation that might take long. But I fundamentally disagree with that. Obviously you're going to face more diverse quality of players, but I've basically to go back to the white black shell. I found success with it even in matchups that looked theoretically hard for this kind of deck. Like I've beaten good blue-green decks with biomechan engineers. I've beaten decks with like social engineering or stuff that looks like it's designed to beat control. And so I feel pretty confident that it's also able to beat good decks.
Chris?
Yeah, I want to ask what like gets you into this deck. Are you like actively like, oh, if I see anything remotely close to bring me into white black, I'm gonna jump into it, or are there like key cards that are like, oh yeah, this is a sign I should go white black, or how do you end up in this?
I think that
I probably need to turn off my like bias against it a little bit.
Maybe I should. Maybe I could show a draft. I don't know if that. Basically, the sweeper is the main starting point. Like usually, it starts with a sweeper at some point, I'm trying to draft the open colors for my seat. So if white and black are open most of the time, that's what it will look like. But yeah, as far as cards that actively pull me towards this, mainly the sweeper, and then if my deck starts with a few removal spells that are either white or black, I guess I'm more likely to go into this. But the creatures, like this deck has more creatures than the usual one, and the creatures are mostly all interchangeable. Like they are not that important, I feel like, and you get them pretty late. Like we were saying, like that white was pretty open and it was easy to get random white cards. And in some drafts, black is too. Like in some drafts, the black sacrifice stuff is not very drafted, and you get swarm colors very late, and so this builds itself. But the important pieces that are hard to get by are the removal spells and the sweeper, and also the card advantage, like nutrient block. I think is a pretty important card that other people want too.
If you want to pull up a draft log or two, we've definitely
Yeah.
gone through those before.
I'll try to find this, but maybe someone else can take the stage.
Can I ask a couple questions on this one first?
Go ahead,
Sure.
yeah.
All right, first I want to know: do you normally play 16 lands? Is that just the norm, or does it?
No, that's more of an exception, I think, because here I have 2 expansionists and 2 blocks.
Yeah, I was curious about.
Yeah, I don't really believe in 16 lands in this format. Like, I think it's usually between 17 and 18, but since you take the draw, you also want
Right.
a little fewer on average, and so like I think the average build is going to be 17, but sometimes you can go down to 16, I think.
Yeah, so when I looked, like, just glanced at this, it was not at all what I thought a deck that would want to be on the draw looked like. But then once you started talking and I started seeing, so many of these creatures are just like better at blocking. Like
Yeah.
the color loves to block, the beetle loves to block, the prospector, and the luminaries, they're better at blocking. They're going to trade up when they block, trade down when they attack. So I'm really interested in this kind of deck. And then like the swarm color is more, he's not like a curve out card. He's, by the time he gets going, you're kind of already in control. I like this. It all makes sense to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think it's pretty cool.
I'm going to search for a deck.
While you're
but,
pulling it up, have you tried the Perigee Beckoners in these shells? Because that's a card that's really impressed me.
I haven't much, but I think it's because I was underrating the card at first and people were picking it higher, so I didn't get many chances to play with it.
Yeah, I have a little pet card list, and Perigee Beckoner is on there. I think I still underrate it, but every time someone plays it against me, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be a problem.
I guess. Yeah, this one was drafted on. Do you still see the screen, or did it go?
The theme screen is up. The deck list is up.
Oh, okay. Can I get another window? Yes. So this was my last draft on stream just earlier, which starts with a Wrath, obviously, and then some like just good generic good cards. Here I take this removal spell because I feel like it's not great, but it goes well with Beyond the Quiet. So here I'm already starting to like maybe prepare the stage for this kind of archetype. And so this is going to be a version that splashes blue. Like it's going to be somewhere in between what I showed earlier and the decks Jason showed at the beginning. Like it's going to have two survey mechans and one manalith, the manalith that draws cards. But like it's basically like white black control with a blue splash in the end.
I think Jason had a question. I just want to not skip ahead too many picks before we
Sorry.
address questions about draft logs. That's okay.
It's less a question and more a comment about Survey Beacon. I've been surprisingly impressed with that card in 2 color decks. In that, like, I think it's playable in a 2 color deck. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you need to have to like. I think like you probably want to be able to activate it for 7, but like I had a blue-red deck where I had like 3 of the blue-red uncommon, and so I played my Survey Mechan as a hexproof flyer that I could put counters on, and then ended up like using it as a 1/3 flyer that dealt my opponent 3 damage at the end of the game. Amusingly often. That's all I wanted to say.
I agree about Mechan in decks with fewer colors. And so here, like obviously the 17 lands is showing the deck without blue, but in the end I ended up playing blue. And Watery Grave was one of the... Like I picked that Watery Grave, I think picked 4 or 5 of pack 3, or maybe higher than that, but it was one of the most important cards because it enabled all the different kinds of lands stuff and also the splash. And so I also had Space-Time Anomaly, and Like it didn't perform that well in the games, but it felt like whenever you're able to play it on turn 4, even if you end up winning the game without milling, like in a more traditional way, it puts so much pressure on them to end the game fast, and makes them like spew resources, and so it might be a little like, even if you don't feel like the card had such an impact, sometimes it has kind of an invisible impact in that it makes them want to end the game, and they are not set up to do that.
Just while on the survey mechan subject, I had an opponent like day 2 show me 2 survey mechans, 2 Corral of the Voids that like I dealt with the first of each, and I was like, okay, I'm in the clear, and then suited up another one and couldn't deal with it. So there's definitely applications for hexproof.
Also, I've been decked and decked my opponents. You can target your opponent with the draw and survey mech and just come up more than I expected it would.
All right, Sam, have you been drafting much? Did you want to add anything? Did you got audio? I guess was worth asking as well. Maybe I should have started with the last question because I still don't. I think you unmuted, Sam, but I don't hear anything. All right, Chris, go ahead. I don't know if Sam's got. It's been too long since he streamed. He's forgotten how to do audio.
Sure. This is a few conversations back, but I did find, I think, an example of what I think a good aggro deck looks like in this format. Oh, geez, why was this easier before? Here we go. Okay. And again, it kind of circles back to shouting out Zookeeper Mechan here. But you know, obvious this deck doesn't like I jammed in the black cards. I don't even know if that's right. I have some like options to go mono red in the sideboard. But basically what DeFore said, Mechan into the Landseeker, like right after the other, is just so strong. It just like puts so much pressure, and then you know the Mechans in the late game work well with the Menace too, right? You can pump them and make them really big threats. This has some like staying power with Bruntars on the top end. I'm not even convinced that like they're that great. Like I probably don't want, like with 4 Mechans, I didn't feel that bad with 6 drops and a 7 drop, obviously. But yeah, this deck just felt like it just ran people over. And then like in the instances where like it didn't run people over, I do have a Mechan and 2 Bruntars here, so it could kind of grind, and that's why like the Lethal Breaking's in here. It's kind of a weird include, but I realize it doesn't really like kill like anything on my side really, and sometimes you just want to clear like chump blockers, like a Virus Beetle and a couple of tokens, and then you can actually like get in your damage. Sometimes, but anyway, I just thought this deck was. I haven't gotten into this type of deck a lot, but it played really strong. I wouldn't mind drafting it again. Just wanted to share.
Yeah, there's a few like burst damagey red cards that some seem to be doing well, some don't. Like the Steel Spell has like pretty. I've never really come across it with and against. I was gonna ask people if they had any chance playing that, and then also like a card that's kind of tricked people again is the red vehicle, the 6/5 flying haste that like seems to be an aggro card, but just doesn't have a home and doesn't really do anything. I think you might have played something like that here because you do have a lot of like bodies and are pretty good at crewing it, but the like Steel Spell, I don't understand how the stats are good aside from stealing and sacking, which is maybe what people are doing with it.
Yeah, I don't think I've played too much with the Steel Spell in even aggro red decks. But I think this you could build basically any deck around Critical Mass of Mechans and Landseekers with like reasonable removal backup and or combat tricks. Like Ring of War in this deck is insane. you know, they're kind of forced to double block land seekers pretty early on, and they're going to be tapped out while you're attacking with them, and then you could just kind of 2-for-1 them, or you can just get in the last bit of damage with it. This is where like Rig of War wants to be.
Yeah, maybe worth going. You know, I think everyone's kind of had a chance, and I still have some subjects I want to talk about, but maybe a chance for me to share a little bit of what I'm doing and going back to why we all think that like white green is the aggro deck that works. And I have kind of like a theory on it, I guess. Here, I'll share this. So my like trophy lists are all basically in 2 colors, which is like white green's done really well, and then blue black's done really well. And so the white green ones, I think that it's just basically my theory on why white green works is just because if you play any 2-drop, it has attacks turns 3, 4, and 5 because it keeps getting bigger. So like you don't actually have good attackers. Like this thing is obviously not a good attacker, but when you add a counter to it on turn 3, and then you add a counter to it on turn 4, and then you add a counter to it on turn 5, and then you add a counter to it on turn 6, then it like consistently has good attacks throughout every point in the game. So I've kind of really liked just, I was also interested that at the start of the format, like I don't know how often people check stats on 17 lands. Day 1 and 2, the green commons that were just like bodies, like the 4/2 for 3 mana, the 4/4 trample for 4 mana, the 5/5 gain 2 for 5 mana, were all like in the B minus range on 17 lands. And so my theory was just that first couple of days of the format, everyone was playing a bunch of spacecraft. Everyone was kind of dirtling around and trying things. And the best things that both punish and enable the spacecraft were just creatures with like large size bodies. So if you're going to be playing more spacecraft than you should, the decks that'll end up doing better out of that are the creatures with the biggest stats. And so green did really well in the early stats. People started flocking to green. And then since then, all of those like commons that aren't really value creatures, they're just like size creatures, have all started to do like a lot worse. But the deck that still wants all those is like these green white decks. So like this one, obviously, again, a couple rares. Like I took one, pick one, pack one, and it got pretty lucky that this was reasonably open. But you don't need a lot of like removal in these kinds of decks. I've been really happy with these as kind of a curve topper, and also the boosters. Like these, you get super late in white decks, and they're just kind of the way to be like, I'm going to push the final few points. I'm going to make sure I have a good attack consistently. And then the other ones, it's just been like very consistently. This one was really good. I had again a couple of rares. Diadrine, the Manland's really good. Obviously, lots of synergies with the honors here and ways to abuse the counters. But then the first one I did, I think this one was like all commons mostly. And so I haven't been drafting red as much because I think that red's kind of hard to pull people in. Like the shock and the bombard seem to be really good in your opening hand, but they're not good in a longer game because they often don't kill the thing you actually care about killing at a certain point of the game. So aside from orbital bombard or orbital plunge, the 6 damage spell, which is obviously great, the other red removal spells have felt like a little bit, I guess, kind of underwhelming to me. And so I did like just have a red deck, but most of my like I've had a bunch of aggro decks that I've tried that have done like very poorly in white, where it's like just clearly not working out, trying to force more aggro things. And so just wanted to echo that as well. Yeah, Chris?
Was there something different about that other green white deck? Do you mind sharing the one that didn't trophy? Did it look the same and just had clunky draws, or was there something fundamentally different about
Yeah, let's go back
how
to
it was
that
built
one.
or the cards in there?
This one was bigger, obviously, because it's ending with Endstone. Obviously I didn't play as many games with this, so I don't remember it as much.
Sure.
I can see how I got into this here. Okay, I started with Endstone. I think I wanted to be more controlling. This is a terrible pick. This must have been a while ago. I would not have taken this here.
Yeah, no, I mean, just, I just want to look at the deck to see, and to me, it does look distinctly different, or at least it looks like not as honed as the other decks with the game, the like kind of beat down game plan in mind. So it's useful to know.
Yeah, I guess these were earlier on. So this was what, August 3rd, so midpoint of the format. But yeah, I don't like my draft log already looking back there. So I'm not going to defend that one. But then yeah, people were talking about blue black too, and my blue black decks, I don't think I've drafted a single sweeper. This was early access when I was stopping at 5 wins. So basically this is like kind of close to 4 trophies. And we'll start with the most recent one. I think I've had this card a lot, which helps. And so when you get this card, blue black's by far the best deck at like finding it and rebuying it. So I've been like, again, draw 2, look at 3. A lot of these decks have been really close to milling out myself. So this one was, I think this is probably wrong, but I ended up playing 16 lands here just because I was like, well, I think might need every spell to actually close out the game. Because it was getting to the point where I had a lot of cheap things that kind of cycled. If I could hit my 3rd land, I was basically pretty good from there. And then pretty happy just like trading with everything from that point onwards. Other one. And then this is where I was going to talk about the Beckoners, because this card, I agree with JED's deck that probably not as good on the draw. These cards have been pressed me so much in these like black-based decks. I don't remember, it was Jason saying that they weren't as interested in drafting black as a main color, but specifically this card kind of fixes the whole like, oh, my creatures are a little bit small, they don't really scale with the green cards, because this thing blocks pretty much everything. And then if you're ever able to either use the warp cost to like station a graph gift or a kill ship, or use it in conjunction with like an Emblazed Oblivion or a Faller's Faithful. There was I think it was literally, this is probably going too much into humble brag, but I think it was the trophy game here was, if I'm remembering correctly, was showing how insane it could be. Yeah, okay. So like just how good the Beckoners could be was me untapping on turn 3 here, playing a land, getting in a Beckoner, targeting the Faithful, getting a second Beckoner, targeting the first Beckoner, attacking with the Faithful, rebuying it, blinking my Beckoner, and then I end the turn with like extra cards in hand and a massive board. And there's just so many times when these cards have just been extremely impressive to me. So it was interesting that like if you think black's not really doing well, I think the key might be drafting this and trying to build around it a little bit more. Yeah, Cryo Shatter. Yeah, Cryo Shatter. There's a lot of punishes for Cryo Shatter. I think that card's still good. Like if we're going to be going to the Arena Open or the PT, it's still a card I'm happy to play. But it's a card you like might even have to sideboard out, because there's Exosuit Savior that bounces your guy. There's Perigee Beckoner that like rebuys it. There's like Selfcraft Mechan that sacrifices your things. There's Embrace Oblivions. There's like a lot of ways to make it kind of less impactful than it might have been. Oh, Jason, hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have 2 different things that I can address. One of which is like people were talking about red and like how like not being impressed with red. I've actually liked red, and I kind of have a couple things to share. And also there was the question about whether anyone's played more than 40, which I have. So I figured it would be good to briefly share about that as well. Let me see. So first of all, playing more than 40, just very briefly, I had an early access deck. The fact that it was early access definitely contributed to me being willing to play more than 40 for content. This was 42, where I played more than 40, partially because of like decking reasons, but mostly because I wanted to play, like I wanted to have a lot of blue and green sources and also play one basic of each other color. Despite the fact that I have no no red or black cards, because of I wanted to make the Colossi and the Mechan better. That's just a brief aside. This was a deck where I played more than 40. I'm not necessarily going to fully defend it here because, again, partially for content. But I think that there are decks where you do want to play more than 40 for land balance reasons, though it is very costly. In terms of red, what I've been liking with red is I like that specifically. I really like Land Seeker and Orbital Plunge. Surprise, surprise! I like the Lander cards a lot in red, but is specifically because they like really do feel like kind of clean 2-for-1s. Like, you know, the deal 6 and the 4/3 menace body are all like very impactful, and then they also make a lander, which can be very impactful depending on how you're building your deck. Like obviously on turn 4, it's not like going to fully help like fix your mana in crazy ways, but like a lot of decks can make use of that. For example, this deck here was like splashing white partially because I have access to like these 4 lander cards that like can just like give me consistent access to white mana on turn 6, and that's like good enough for these white cards. And also I have like a couple expensive cards that really appreciate having extra land drops here with like Endstone and Brentar, right? And also in just like in terms of red commons, there's like Nebula Dragon at 7 mana, which also rewards you for, you know, these 4 mana ways to make landers that help you hit your 7th land drop. So that's where I felt red's strength at common is like these cards. Like also Zookeeper's pretty nice. Slag Drill Scrapper and Moxite can help with like early and late game smoothing a little, which is also nice. But like to me, like Land Seeker and Plunge are like the draws to red, like the things that actually let red do powerful things. And yeah, so like this deck was very good at doing that, right? Just like having cards that mattered all the way up and down the curve. And I wanted to contrast that with a different deck I had, which this deck went 1-2. So the previous deck was a 3-0. This deck was a 1-2. It was definitely, it's definitely better than it played out, partially because this was early in the format and I kept like thinking my cards did different things than they actually did. Like I cast Cut Propulsion on a creature with less power than toughness like 2 different times and lost games because of it. But either way, like this deck felt like it was trying to do too many different things that just like weren't really working out. Like I was trying out Entropic Battlecruiser and that card felt really bad here with like not really many ways to like get solidly on the board. Like I don't really have any like large 2 and 3 drops to like really establish board presence before I play the Battlecruiser, and obviously it's like anti-synergy with other grindy do nothing cards like Memorial Vault. I had the double Perigee Bender combo here with Zealot and Voidborn, and I did end up assembling that once off of drawing towards it with Memorial Vault, but it still like was, I think this deck was like trying to do too many cute things and like not really playing to the board that well, and like I was playing a bunch of like nonsense red cards like the Active Treason or like Melted Moxite or Debris Field Crusher that just like didn't have high impact, and like my black cards also didn't really have that high impact, so like I just like couldn't keep up off it with this deck, and that's where I felt this deck failed. And like that's the big contrast I wanted to draw of like this deck, like the Land Seekers and Plunges felt like really core to like doing impactful things across the curve, and that's what this deck was missing. Yeah, I hope that helps with red things.
Do you think there's a build that fixes this? Because there's some cards in your sideboard I can already see that like I probably swap in at this point.
I don't know exactly. Like I would definitely be playing the Scrapper. I definitely wouldn't be playing the Battlecruiser or the Intervention. Like you can play. I don't really like Red Tiger Mechan, and I guess you can play like. Oh yeah, definitely should be playing the Monoist here. This was me trying too many things at once. Somewhat. I think like again, I don't think this deck was like, you know, supremely bad or something. It just had many awkwardnesses that like got magnified by like me playing poorly and like getting a little unlucky as well. But like the awkwardnesses were definitely there, and that's something I wanted to know.
What are your thoughts on the dragon, the 7-drop?
I think that it is a strong card that is a 2-for-1, but you can't play it in every deck because you need to like you play it in a deck that like actually that consistently gets the 7 mana, and like not every deck is that. Not every deck wants that, but it's like pretty good for the fact that it like often is 13th. Yeah.
Anyone else? We're at almost 90 minutes, which is usually the rough runtime, but it is a bigger group than usual. So I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to speak their part if they have questions, comments, more decks they want to show off, archetypes they're interested in looking at. I could certainly stay for a little bit longer if anyone else needs to.
Has anyone trophied with a straight green-black deck? And do they want to share it?
That's probably a good question to ask.
If it's accessible.
It is. It's a bit interesting too. Like it's not. Like I don't know how replicable it is, but I have one good green black. Yes. So I had this one, which I drafted after reading somewhere that that green black was bad, so I wanted to, to prove it wrong. Basically, it's a gene pollinator deck. Like I think it's the most important card because it's like what the person was saying was that big green creatures don't go with black sacrifice stuff, which I agree with. But I think Gene Pollinator is like the one green card that actually goes very well with the sacrifice stuff, since it helps you like flood the board early, and then you can sack it to stuff like Faller Faithful or Swarm Color, and like it's a mostly black deck. There are a few green cards, mostly the pollinators and some removal that could have been black too. And like the uncommons, obviously, like Seed Ship Agrarian is great with Pollinator, and Your Social Engineering is great overall. But still, you want to play more green sources because of Pollinator, and Pollinator filters it to black. And this 3-0'd, like it has a lot of uncommons and I think one rare. But it felt very good. And the green, like the interesting part is that the big green creatures and the Biosynthetic Burst, which can be good cards in other green decks, I think are out of place here because like they don't go well with the black theme.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. This is cool.
Did you draw Corral of the Void much? I think I asked you when you posted this earlier, but I can't remember what it was.
I did a couple of times and it was good. I felt like you didn't need like it's good in. I guess there are spots. It's a bit like the like space-time anomaly thing, in that there are spots where it's completely game-breaking. Either when you are racing, it can be very good, or when you're a little bit ahead, like when the dust settles at the end of a game and the board is clean and you have like one creature left standing and you play this on it and immediately get one of their big creatures that you killed earlier, and the swing is very, very big, and like even if you don't have void, it's usually good enough. And if you have some, like if they have to block, for example, the creature you bring back, it gives you void and then you can keep going. So there are spots where it's very, very good, and I guess there are spots where you just don't play it. But I feel like if you pick your spots to play it, it's going to be good most of the time, and I'll be happy picking it high. I think I got it pick 9 of that draft, like on the wheel. I think I first picked an uncommon, like maybe Sea Chip Agrarian or Fowler Faithful, and it came back on the wheel, and like it shouldn't have come back on the wheel, I think.
The interesting thing about that card for me, especially in a shell like this, is like early on you're not presenting a lot of targets that your opponents want to cast removals on, and even in like in the entire deck there's not what I would call a lot of like high priority, like you got the Agrarians, you got the Titan, and you know maybe the Kill Ship and maybe the Color. But I would have thought that you would either need to present a lot of threats so that when you do cast it, it's like you're safe and they don't have a removal spell up, or you have a lot of removal so that you're like clearing the way so that one of your shitty creatures gets an attack in. But like I guess the point I'm kind of curious about is how happy are you in the late game just like maybe throwing it on a prospector or a gene pollinator and like suiciding your creature in to get one of their big things.
I think it's fine. Like it depends on the big thing, but I think it's like if that's the floor of the card or close to the floor of the card, it should be a pretty good card. I don't know if it makes sense to frame it that way. I think like also since this is a gene pollinator deck, there will be games like I had games where my opponent just had to play removal at whatever, like because I was curving out too fast. Like they were just curving their removal in order not to die, and so after one or two removal spells, you just play this on like I don't know, a prospector or whatever's left, and they maybe don't have something to remove it. It's also like I didn't mention it, but like you, it's also great with 1 mana removal spells. Like if you can curve it out with either Embrace Oblivion or Melt Strider's Resolve, obviously.
I'm also somewhat interested in Broodguard Elite in this deck because normally like one of the downsides of that is you don't have a lot of sticky creatures, but like black has a lot of sticky creatures, so you're almost always going to have something to put the counters on.
It was pretty good. I think like the main home for it is obviously green-white, but I don't remember if I drew it a lot, but I think the couple times I drew it, it was good. The black creatures are also like you said, they don't really like at some point they get outclassed. They have small stats, so being able to make them relevant is good. Yeah.
Last chance. I know Sam's been leaving and rejoining. I don't think we're going to get audio out of you. Final chance. Okay, well, in that case, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Big group, but I do like hosting these. Hopefully you all appreciate these, and I really thank everybody, especially we have a lot of different time zones here today, so really appreciate the big spread for everybody. To anybody listening, good luck in the Arena Open. Good luck to the people here who are competing at the upcoming PT, and hopefully we can all make some good money from this. So thank you so much, and have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for hosting.
Thanks, yeah.
Thanks for.
Voilà. J'espère que ça vous a intéressé. Je sais pas combien de personnes sont restées jusque-là. Je vais remettre la cam vite fait. Pour plus tard. Qui nous parle? C'est moi, bonjour. J'ai voulu appuyer sur le bouton raccrocher. Ah, ça veut dire que t'étais vraiment investi. C'est nice. J'espère que vous avez appris des trucs et pas que de moi. Il y a eu pas mal de trucs intéressants. Je suis content d'avoir vu le Boros notamment. Je trouve que le Boros c'était intéressant. Il a évidemment beaucoup de Golden Co, enfin beaucoup de Sami. Mais après, c'est le format qui veut ça et c'est les dynamiques de draft aussi, quoi. Évidemment, quand une bicolorité est peu draftée, bah, tu chopes les Golden Co, et si tu arrives à faire un deck cohérent avec, c'est très fort. Et les Blue Black de Thierry étaient intéressants aussi, même si j'aurais pu les voir dans d'autres contextes. Et même s'ils avaient beaucoup de Vras. Et ça m'a un peu fait marrer genre la tentative de. Enfin, je sais pas trop ce qu'il a essayé de faire d'abord avec son histoire de Best of One, mais je sentais que la discussion risquait de partir dans une direction qui n'avait rien à voir avec le format et plus avec Arena en général, donc j'ai essayé de recentrer le truc. Il y en avait un sans Vras, ouais. Et ouais, c'était chou. Enfin, en fait, c'est un sujet sur lequel je suis prêt à parler, mais juste ça m'avait l'air hors sujet par rapport au call, donc je voulais pas trop m'étendre dessus. Et globalement, ma position, pour ceux qui la connaissent pas, même si j'en parle souvent ici, c'est que, genre, effectivement, le spread de niveau en BO1 est plus important, en BO3, pardon, est plus important que en BO1 mythique. Mais alors, d'une part, je pense que tous les decks de BO1 qui ont été présentés ce soir, c'est pas que des decks draftés en mythique, hein, parce que bah, les gens, il faut bien qu'ils arrivent à mythique, donc quelque part, ça pollue aussi leur data. Et, euh, et d'autre part, je pense pas que. Bon, d'autre part, je pense aussi que l'algorithme a une énorme influence sur le BO1, et ça, pour le coup, c'est. Enfin, je pense que c'est plus à démontrer, hein. Il y a eu pas mal de posts dessus, que ce soit sur Reddit ou ailleurs, sur les effets de l'algo, les win rates des cartes sont pas les mêmes. Et enfin, je pense que. Et enfin, je pense que le niveau de l'adversaire, c'est qu'une toute petite. C'est qu'un petit paramètre en fait de la qualité de la data que tu peux accumuler. Ça dépend un peu comment tu vois la chose, mais si tu cherches de la data, genre à faire vraiment des statistiques sur tes games, bah en vrai tes games elles ont aucune valeur, genre juste va regarder la data de 17 Lands, et si t'as pas une approche quantitative mais qualitative où t'essaies d'apprendre des choses de la manière dont tu joues et la manière dont les cartes interagissent, bah ça tu peux l'apprendre aussi bien contre des mauvais decks et des mauvais joueurs que contre des bons decks et des bons joueurs. En fait, faut juste faire le petit switch mental de quel est le contexte, où est-ce que je suis en train de jouer et qu'est-ce que mon oppo aurait pu faire. Donc je pense pas que le fait de jouer contre des adversaires moins forts, quand c'est le cas, euh, pourrit forcément les apprentissages. Le tu joues pas à ton vrai niveau si t'es en BO3, c'était particulier. Mais surtout que, enfin bon, bref, genre, j'ai pas envie de rendre le truc trop personnel parce qu'en vrai j'ai rien de particulier contre Dafor, hein. Je regarde son stream régulièrement et tout. Mais surtout que les decks qu'il a présentés sur ce stream, genre de mon point de vue à moi, qui est peut-être coloré par le contexte, mais de mon point de vue à moi, c'était les plus nuls du lot en fait. Donc à partir de là, bon, genre de quelle légitimité tu parles quoi. Genre, je- on est d'accord Thierry. Enfin bref. Voilà, bon, je suppose qu'on va terminer le stream là-dessus.